Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and thanks for joining us again today. We got our weekly scheduled webinar, as a lot of you guys are already aware. I do see some new faces in the room here. I'll let Zach run a poll here so we can get a feel for who's out there. But how many of you guys actually attended the NinjaTrader 8 webinar on Big Mike's? It was, I think, what, 2 days ago? Yeah, 2 days ago. So Ray, from the CEO from NinjaTrader, did a little presentation on what's up and coming with NinjaTrader 8. Actually, can I just test you guys? Let me know if you can hear me. Okay, yeah, okay, so obviously you can hear me. Thanks, Bob. Anyway, so I got a glimpse of what they're up to, and no, I don't get any sort of inside track from those guys. But it looks like some of the changes that I'm actually quite excited and pretty positive about, because there's a lot of things that they're adding to NinjaTrader that we can certainly take advantage of with BloodHound. They've kind of revamped the entire interface. Their backtesting granularity and backtesting control has been greatly enhanced, which is amazing, because that was always kind of one of our big issues. Is if you guys had a chance to use SI Raven in the backtest and you're using kind of only bar level data, one of the issues is that if say you're using multiple time frames, actually is where it really comes in. If you have like several time frames that you're looking at simultaneously, the problem is those bars don't always close or close at the same time, especially if you're using like tick charts, and that just wreaks havoc with your backtest results and your system, because it doesn't give you accurate, it doesn't give you an accurate depiction of, say, what the state of a particular bar was on another time frame when you're looking at the current time frame. So that's always been kind of a sticking point. I'm aware there's a couple ways around it, but they're very clumsy, and they still have a lot of drawbacks to them. But anyways, it sounds like NinjaTrader will allow you to select in version 8 tick level backtesting, which is a big deal, because that means your backtests for any kind of multiple chart type systems will now be accurate. Furthermore, they're actually going to let you use historical data as replay, which is something that I always sort of thought was kind of odd that you'd have this replay ability, but even if you had like historical data, you couldn't use it. So you had to go in and you had to one by one download each day, like only one day at a time of data, which was, I have to admit, it was very, it's way harder than it had to be. And I understand they probably did that so you wouldn't sit there and download, years of data and clog up the servers or whatever. But I thought that was kind of a backwards way of going about things, and it sounds like they've actually fixed that. So other than that, like there's a lot of neat little changes they've got on the code side of things. They're using .NET 4.5, which probably which to the really doesn't mean anything to most people, but to us, 4.5.NET has some really streamlined multi-threading capability, and so I'll be looking into that and seeing how we could improve our product using kind of separate threads for computation or historical computation, that sort of thing. Perhaps we won't even have to do anything, because that might actually be handled kind of by the system already. So anyways, just to let you know, I saw a glimpse of it, and they're sort of saying that 2013 is when they're planning on releasing it. So I imagine a public beta will be in order pretty shortly. I'd say imagine it'll probably be early next year. So yeah, it's kind of exciting what they're doing. And one kind of neat little thing that they're kind of up to is they're going to be skinning their interfaces. So in other words, you can change the color, and you can configure, essentially the look and feel of how you want NinjaTrader to look like. I'm not talking just the charts, I'm talking like the actual interface itself. And it allows third-party developers like us to actually go in there and offer kind of neat little color schemes and whatnot. So I don't know, there's a lot of neat little things that they're up to. So that's just kind of what's new and what's going on. And of course, we're kind of coming up here on a holiday. Obviously, it's in a couple days here, a couple weeks. And Christmas, and we're heading into the New Year. So Zach and I have been talking about what we're going to be doing the webinar schedule, and we've decided that we'll keep it going except for the 26th. In Canada, that's known as Boxing Day. I'm just made aware by some of you guys, and it's not what you guys call it in the States. But Boxing Day is the day after Christmas in Canada, and I suspect most of you guys should be, probably be spending time with their families. So even if we did run a workshop on the 26th, it'd probably be pretty empty. So anyways, we're going to be canceling the 26th, and the 2nd, we're not sure yet. We haven't discussed it yet. Perhaps I should ask you guys, like, if we did run a webinar on the 2nd, would you guys be actually interested in attending that? Because otherwise we'll just go ahead with it. But if most of you guys are probably going to be recovering from hangover or something. No, actually, that's probably the first. Then again, it's kind of no point doing it. There's hardly anybody here. Okay, so it looks like we've got a bunch of questions in the room already. Randy O, I know Roger, you asked a question there, and I'll certainly get Zach to go over that. And as well, Alfred. Yes, time-based charts. Yeah, absolutely. That's the multi-time frame issue with it is using historical issues with calculating backwards. That's something that we're very looking forward to with NinjaTrader 8 to help solve that. Because right now, like I said, it's a bit of a compromise. If you're using multiple time frames, what you're getting historical data is really just an approximation if your bars aren't closing at the same time, I think. Yeah, Randy obviously attended NT8 as well. A couple of people are saying cancel. Some people are saying okay. We'll put it out there in an email maybe. So yeah, looks like we're ready to get started here. We got one question, and we got quite a few people that joined us last minute here, and it looks like quite a few new faces in the room. But Zach, why don't you go ahead and run the poll and see what we got for new people, and maybe we can answer Roger's question there, and any other come in. And Zach said he's got some sort of basic stuff to cover today to get some new people up to snuff. And I know we were sort of on big mics there for a bit, so we probably got some big mic users in here. All right. Yeah, that's right, Martin. We just got a disclaimer right now. I'm going to pass it over to Zach, who will be actually running BloodHound. Right? Here we go.
All right. Thanks, Jeremy. I think I just needed to switch it over to me. I did put the poll up. Okay, good. Yeah, I see you guys are answering the poll. Great. So this is good. I see some questions coming in. Roger's got a question about running the slope. Hey, Jeremy, I wanted to ask if you could mute your microphone, please. So Roger's asking about how to filter a flat slope trend, and that's kind of what I have set up for today. So okay, let me take a look at the poll here. So all right, so we got a third of you are new to BloodHound. All right, great. So welcome. I'll kind of do some basic introductions for all the new people here, and then we'll get started on answering some questions. So let me switch over to, let me close the poll and switch over to my screen. All right, in just a moment you guys should be able to see my screen. And so we just had a question come in this morning, and so I have my chart ready. The question involves a bunch of moving averages, a system with a bunch of moving averages, looking for a crossover, and some conditions on some other moving averages as well. But I'll get to this afterwards. Let me get through some of these questions here first.
Hey Zach, sorry to interrupt. I also got a question emailed to me from Kurt Hansen. So I'm going to forward you that in an email, and you can maybe read that out and try that one as well. Okay.
Sounds good. Thanks. All right. Let me pull up the website here. Just a moment. So since we have a bunch of new people, I would like to show you guys our various support areas so you guys can submit your questions and also kind of know where to get going. All right, so on our home page here, you'll find all of our learning resources here under BloodHound, under Learning BloodHound. Also, you can go to support, and essentially it's the same menu here. So we have the documentation page. First, since you're new to BloodHound, what I'd recommend first is going to the video tutorial section here. There we go. So there's a couple of introductory videos here to get you started. The quick start guide's pretty critical. It introduces you to the BloodHound interface and some kind of basic concepts. And then there's a few tutorials on kind of methodologies here for determining trend. There's a part 1 and part 2. And then we have like the very first solver on here. And then down below, how the logic nodes work. So it kind of teaches you how the and logic works, how or logic works. There's also the additive and the ratio. And from there, then you can go back and, well, actually let me show you the tips and tricks first. So there's a good tips and trick video here for how to analyze custom indicators, right? So there's a lot of custom indicators out there, a lot of third-party, custom indicators would also include third-party indicators. And so this tutorial was, or this tips and tricks video was geared towards, how can you determine if your custom indicator or, your third-party indicator will work with BloodHound. Essentially what it's about is determining if that indicator provides a data out of it that can be read by other indicators, right? So just keep in mind, BloodHound is an indicator. So whenever you're plugging a third-party indicator into BloodHound, that third-party indicator has to have some kind of data out that could be read. And there's quite a few third-party vendors that choose to block that data out. So you see stuff on the chart, but that data can't be fed into other indicators. And so this video will help you determine if that's the case with yours or not. And then there's there's another one here. So like the ADX, this is a good one. The ADX, right, is a non-directional indicator, so it's always moving up. When you're in a trend, doesn't matter if the trend is down or up. So this is kind of a unique indicator. All right, and then next, so for Roger, I'm going to answer your question, but for Roger, just to help you out in the future, if you go to the documentation page, there's a video link now on all these solvers. So since your question is dealing with the slope, you can click on the slope solver here, and then when that comes up, you'll see the contents, and you'll see there's a video tutorial here. So that just links us down to the bottom of the page, and there's a direct link to one of our workshop videos here. And the nice thing about this is you don't have to watch the whole video. This will actually this will jump you ahead in time and start you off right when I start talking about the slope solver, so you don't have to try and skim through the whole video to find out where I'm talking about the slope. So, and then there's some also examples down here as well, Roger. So these examples would have answered your question as well. So, and then let's see, the next thing, all of these workshops are recorded. So if you go to the training workshops, that will show you, that'll bring up the list of all of the recorded workshops. So you have like the most recent 10 up here, most recent 8 or 10 up here. And then if you click on this link, on this title here, this will bring you into all of them, and then you can see the archives by month. And we also have a YouTube channel. Right, so if you start up a video, you can click on the YouTube link there. It'll jump you over to our YouTube channel, and then you can just kind of, oops, that was pretty loud. Then you can skim through all of our workshop videos that way as well. And then, okay, so here's the best way to submit your questions. Just go to the Contact Us page, and we have a form here. So you can just put in your name, and obviously you at least have to have an email, so we can email you back, and then you know, kind of the nature of your question, and then your question down below, and then just hit submit, and that will create a help ticket that both Jeremy and I can read. And pretty soon we're going to have a getting started page here that will be coming up here pretty soon. And so that getting started page kind of condenses everything onto one page of what I just kind of showed you, just to give you like a short, quick start guide. And so we also have on this page, you see a book an appointment button. So I asked that, you know, for new people to BloodHound, I would ask that you would at least watch the tutorial videos, so that way, you know, you at least kind of have some introduction. So before we book an appointment, that way we can start kind of jump right into whatever your question is, and you know, can save us both some time. And so once you kind of go through the video tutorials, and hopefully you can find a workshop video to start with, and then we have some questions about, you know, something, a system that you might want to start putting together, and you're just kind of not sure where to start. Then book an appointment with me, and I can kind of help you get going from there. All right, well, with that, let's get to BloodHound. So, actually, well, I was going to show you my Skype name, but I'm logged into the wrong account. So, I do have a Skype account. The account name is Zach White SI. So feel free to add me as a contact to your Skype if you like, and if you see me online, then that means I'm available for instant questions, instant support, whatever you might need. I ask that you don't submit your questions to Skype. That's just not a very good way because it may take me a while to get to it. So if you do have questions, please use the Contact Us page. That way your question doesn't get lost on Skype. All right, so one I guess not final, but one other introduction for the new people in the room here on how to get BloodHound on your chart. So like I said earlier, it is an indicator, so you want to go to the indicators list. And BloodHound is under SI for shark indicators. So if we scroll down, there's BloodHound. And some other indicators come with BloodHound, so you can see what BloodHound's doing visually on your chart with some of the solvers. So we have Chameleon, and there's workshop videos that explain how to use the Chameleon indicator. Also, there's SI swings and SI swings high-low as well. These other ones here are, this is an internal function, so this actually doesn't do anything on the chart. We just haven't found a way to hide the name yet. And same with some of this other stuff. The only other indicators for the chart is the Chameleon, the swings, and the swings high lows. All right, so let me add BloodHound to the chart, and just yeah, I'm just going to click OK. Keep this kind of simple for now. So you see the green bars, and now we also have the button up on top here. So if I click the button on the chart, that will open the interface, and here's the BloodHound interface. The first thing you want to do is you want to create a name. You want to save, create a name for the template you're going to start building. So this name is very similar to how NinjaTrader allows you to save a chart template, right? So you can do a save as and save yourself, a chart template, right? And so BloodHound creates templates for itself as well, so you can load them up later. So the easiest way to do this is you can just hit the change button. So that change button is kind of the same thing as the save as, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a little shortcut. I'm going to select the previous workshop name and put today's date on there. So look at that. Today's date is 12/12/12. Is that ominous or what? Okay, so I have a name, and so this is just kind of like a best practice. You don't have to have a name if you don't want to, but I'm just trying to show you guys some good practice habits here. And now we're kind of ready to go to start building our system. So let me address Roger's question here, which is, how do I filter flat slope trend conditions, plus or minus 0.05 ticks, so that the long and short signal doesn't change color? So I'm not sure quite what you mean with so that the long and short doesn't change color, but I can show you how to filter a flat slope out. So what I'm going to use is I have a 89 EMA, let's see, SMA, sorry. Yeah, so I have an 89 SMA already on the chart. So let's use that as our example. And let me kind of fatten it up here. So there we go. So it's pretty easy to see. And I can also put it on the top of the chart there. All right. Let me bring up the interface. So whenever you open the indicator panel on the chart and the chart refreshes, it has to close BloodHound's interface in order to do that, in order to refresh the chart. So that is normal behavior. And also something to keep in mind, so when NinjaTrader forces BloodHound's interface window to close, BloodHound will always save your template. It will always write to this file and save your template. So every time you exit the interface, so if I hit the red X, it's also going to do a quick save of your template before it exits the interface. So this is just kind of a behind-the-scenes safety precaution. So BloodHound's always trying to save the your template file. All right, so I'm going to add the slope solver here because that's what we're looking for, is the slope of the SMA 89 period. So as you can see, we already have some feedback on the chart, and so the solver's feedback is it defaults to the SMA 14. So that's what we're seeing right now, is the SMA 14. But we're going to switch it over to the SMA 89. So another good practice habit is to name all of your solvers so you know exactly what indicator they're working with. Or sometimes it might be price, so you know if your indicator is working with price or volume or an indicator or what it might be. So the next step, so when I click in the indicator parameter box, right, you see this little button pops up. I can click that button, and now this is the indicator window for BloodHound. So what I need to do is I just need to simply change the period, and I can click OK. And now, if we look back on the chart, right, so now we can see that solver's output is matching the SMA 89 now. You can see, so we're getting a little bit of flipping going on. We can see we have this long here, and it's kind of hard to see in the chart, but apparently this one bar, the SMA, did rise. So let's mark that there. Even though it's kind of visually hard to see, if I stretch the chart out, over exaggerate it, yeah, so we can see there's just a slight blip up, just a slight tick up on the slope there. So obviously we're getting a lot of chop here. So what Roger's probably wanting to do is to filter out all this bouncing around up and down and stuff. So the way we can do that is we can set in a slope requirement. Or so you can see we have a minimum slope and a maximum slope. Now if you only have one slope requirement, you want to start with the maximum slope. So what we're going to put on here is Roger wants to see 0.05 ticks. And so you can see we have this maximum and minimum. And so this correlates down below here. So we can see we have greater than max and at max. So the max is set to this 0.05 ticks. So when the slope of the SMA is at max or at 0.05 ticks, we're going to get a value of 1 out of this indicator. So we can see the indicator right now, or I'm sorry, the solver. So our slope solver is giving us a -1 out because the slope of the SMA is down and it's greater, or it's at our, it's at our 0.05 slope or less. And so now let me kind of show you some today's workshop. I was planning on showing some, kind of going back to some basics and showing some common concepts. So because of all the questions we got going here, I'll probably end up answering questions, but I'd like to dive in a little bit into some of the concepts. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn this off. So you can see this says output in direction, right? So in direction means, so the direction of the SMA is down. So therefore our output is down, or more correctly, we're getting a short, right? So this solver is giving us a short output, which is in the direction that the indicator is pointing. So that's what this means by in direction. So if I set this to 0, now against direction essentially is just the opposite. So now the indicator is pointing down, but the solver is giving us an output that's against the direction, or in the opposite direction. So that's kind of what the function of, so you'll see there's several solvers that have have this against direction or in direction. And so that's what they're doing. It's a way of inverting the output, which is different than this invert. I should say it reverses the output. This up here, this invert value is a true inversion. So let me set this back to the default operations, and okay. Actually, I'm going to set this to more of a digital type output. Okay, so we can see we have this void here of no output, because essentially the SMA is flat along here. Now if I use this invert, you can see, so the indicator is pointing up, we're getting a short. Now this flat area, we're getting both a long and a short. So it's a true inversion. And now where we used to get a short out, we're getting a long. So this does a true inversion. So this really isn't inverting the signals like most people would want. Most people might want to see a reversal. Right? So if I did this, so you can see we have the against direction and in direction, and so now we're both getting a long and a short. All right, Roger, I hope that answers your question there. And I'm just going to see if Roger had any kind of follow-up to his question. Doesn't look like it. All right, so give me an opportunity here to kind of skim through some of these other comments and questions. So Randy, yes, Randy. Jeremy was talking about Big Mike's NinjaTrader 8 webinar. Okay, let's see. So I see some of you guys are kind of giving your vote for, if we should do a webinar on the 2nd. My kind of feeling is that we probably won't unless we get a high demand for it. So, most people just like to kind of relax after the holidays. All right, hopefully the echo is gone. I think that was a while back. So Kurt sent in a question. So I sent an email because the comment window couldn't allow me to use it at sign up. Kurt, I guess, are you at sign up? I'm not sure which sign up. I'm not sure if you're talking about the window. I'm sorry, the workshop sign up, or let's see. Oh, okay. Okay. Jeremy's our webmaster, so we'll have Jeremy take a look at that. Thanks, Kurt. So, Ollie, Sandy is asking, how does the market condition solver work? Actually, that's not a solver. I'm running the debug version, so you'll see some stuff in here that may not show up on your guys' version, just because I'm running the debug version. All right. So I'm always in beta testing mode. So Sandy, the market condition solver doesn't do anything. I guess so. The other part of your question is for trending versus swing versus chop. We do have on our to-do list. This is probably going to be a while out, where ultimately, kind of like the original. What's the right word? The original. Premise of how BloodHound got started is we kind of wanted to create a a universal system where we could try and figure out what the current market condition is, and so that still is a goal of ours, and so hopefully one of these days not too far off, we'll begin to work on that again. It would be nice. We would like to have a solver where it would kind of identify what the current market condition is. So Jeremy and I both took Roger Felton's class, and he kind of had he had something like 4 or 5 different kind of classifications of market conditions, and that's kind of what spurred Jeremy on to building BloodHound, was to try and automate the discovery of what those market conditions were. And so that's still on the drawing board for sure. So hopefully one of these days we'll actually be able to roll that out. Okay. Oh, all right. Thanks, Randy. So for you, Alpha alpha testers, you probably did see the market condition. Oh, so Sandy, that's right. Sandy, you've got the alpha version too, I believe. So that's how you saw it. Yeah. So that will disappear when we roll out the final version. Thanks, Randy, for letting me know. And all right, with that, I think I got through all the questions. So let me kind of move on to the question I had on our help ticket this morning. So I'm guessing that George is a new user, and so as I kind of explained earlier, Joe is using a system that has multiple moving averages. And so I guess the premise is kind of this crossover. So when the two red moving averages cross each other, he's using other moving averages as kind of a filter to take, as a permissive type filter as to whether we're actually going to take the trade. All right, so he has 4 main moving averages here. So the 2 red ones and then the 2 white ones. And oops, actually, I marked it backwards. So the white ones, which are the shorter period, when those cross, he's using the 2 red ones as his permissive. Sorry about that. Yeah, so he's using the faster moving averages. He's looking for crossovers on these 2 white moving averages, and he's using the 2 red ones as kind of his filter. And it's kind of hard to see, but there's 2 blue ones in here. It's a 1 period and a 3 period, very tight. And he's also looking at the slope of the blue moving averages, and he's also looking at the slope of, let me read my notes here. Actually, he's looking at the slope of all the moving averages. So one of them that seems to be kind of critical is the solid white line. Oops. But really, he kind of needs the slope of all the moving averages to kind of be in alignment. So let's take care of the simple condition, which is the main signal trigger, which is the crossover. So let me pull up the interface here, and I'm going to take a quick sip of my coffee. So you can see I'm just going to select the crossover solver, add that down, and let's see. I'll just delete that for now. I'll recreate it later. So what we're looking at is we're looking at the EMA 11 versus the EMA 21 crossover. So I've kind of modified George's system a little bit just to kind of protect the anonymity of his system. I don't think this is, I've seen this system before up on big mics, but still, I try not to advertise your guys's, the details. So if you send stuff in, I try not to advertise it. So I have changed things up a little bit. But hopefully we still get some signals, even though I made some modifications to his original question. All right, so yeah, so we're looking for the crossover of 2 EMAs. So So let me switch. So typically, indicator A section, so this section here, indicator A, you want to put in the faster moving average. And then indicator B down here, you want to put in the slower moving average. So let's switch this over to the EMA 11. And switch this one over to the EMA 21. So what I'm doing is I'm just simply double clicking on the indicator and it drops it down. I could also use the add new indicator. All right. That button as well. Now something else that BloodHound can do is, right, so on your chart, right, you can nest an indicator into another indicator, and you can do the same thing with BloodHound. All right, so I can nest this EMA into this EMA. So you can see up on top we have the EMA 14 being fed into the EMA 14. All right, so I could change this to 21. And so now we see we have the EMA 21 being nested or fed into the EMA 14. And we could keep doing that. I can keep adding, and I can keep adding. Oh, I need to select which one I'm adding into. All right, so now I've got like a quadruple smoothed EMA. So, all right, let's remove some of that though. Get this guy back to normal. So, set this to 21. All right, so there's our basic signal. So there's a cross down for a short. We have this short little cross up and a cross down. So I can kind of see from George's system here, you know, that when you use the slope of the other moving averages, that, you know, it would have filtered out this long signal, which looks pretty nice. So I also had the because there was a Fed announcement at the beginning of the workshop. So I put the YM or the Dow and the ES on here, small charts. Just wanted to see what the market reaction was. So look at this. Look at the ES with this huge wick up and huge wick down. That was definitely, you know, the 5-minute bar, which the Fed news announcement came in. Same thing with same thing here on the Dow. Huge wicks on that. And it looks like the market liked what the Fed had to say. I'm not surprised. That should have been a pretty obvious long after that announcement. And but you know, market hasn't moved a whole lot. Kind of surprising. So we got 32, 5 points. 5, 6 points from the announcement. Well, it's kind of surprising. I guess the market already kind of baked in the expected response from the Feds. So, okay. Back to our system. All right, so there's a whole bunch of other signals here going on. And so I marked this arrow here. So so we should get this signal for sure. Everything's all indications of the moving averages are sloping down. So we should get this short signal, but this long signal should get filtered out. So let's And just to give you guys a little shortcut, or so we don't get a bunch of emails, this toolbar here is available on Big Mics, and it is called toolbar something. So if you go to Big Mics, look in the NinjaTrader download section, and just do a search for toolbar. I think it's called toolbar shortcut. Yeah, toolbar shortcut. So very handy to have. All right, so we want to cross out this long signal, and I believe we're also going to lose this long signal as well. I think this one should get filtered out too. So we'll kind of use these as two examples to build upon. All right, so let's start looking at some of the other conditions here. So we have the main signal in. So now we want to look at, so we need a minimum slope on the EMA 11. So let's find our slope in the solver, add it on there. All right, so we want a pretty good slope on the solid white line. So the solid white line is our EMA 11. And so I already kind of addressed how to do this earlier with Roger's question. So let me just set up the indicator correctly. And now, in Roger's question, he used the term degrees. So he's looking for 15 degrees slope. Now, with charts, you can't use the term degrees. And the reason why is that, well, let me draw this line on here. I'm going to try and get it as close to 45 degrees as I can. Right, so that looks pretty close to 45 degrees. And so as you can see, what I did is I widened the bars on the chart, and now this is no longer 45 degrees. So so degrees are relative to to how much y-axis is showing on your chart versus let me delete that line. Yeah, so degrees on your chart is relative to how stretched out you have the x-axis, or how wide your bars are, and also if you choose to, depending on how much price data is showing on the y-axis here. So you can't really measure things in degrees. You can measure things in ticks, and so that's why our solvers kind of default to ticks when you're adjusting the slope here. And so what a tick means is, once again, a tick varies depending on the instrument, right? So I'm looking at the ES, right? So the ES, the tick is in quarters. So every tick is 0.25. So if I did a measurement in ticks, what that does is, let's see, I'm trying to find a bar here that kind of matches up with that. Yeah, so okay, so between these two lines is one tick, and I'm using this these two bars here. So the body of these two bars is only 1 tick. So if you're measuring the slope in ticks, what that means is that the indicator, or the moving average, for a slope of 1 tick, that means the change in price of the moving average from one bar to the next bar, that has to be 1 tick. It's kind of hard to see that when you have it in line mode. So let me change this. Or actually, here's kind of a neat trick that I like to do. So when I'm building a system and I'm trying to analyze slope, or distance of how much the indicator is actually moving, so I can get things fine-tuned in BloodHound. Here's a little trick that I like to do. What I'm going to do is add another EMA. And I'm going to set the second one to a dot. Right, so I have 2 EMA 11s on the chart now. One of them I set to a dot plot. And so now I can see little dots. And so I can so I can visually see how much I can see the Y value of how much the indicator is moving. So let's move this a little bit. So these two lines are 1 tick apart. So, excuse me. So the way I measured my lines is I'm looking at the body of these candles. So I can see this is 1 tick apart. And I can kind of visually see that this dot to this dot is about 1 tick of movement, or a little bit more. It kind of looks like it's a little bit more of movement. And so, excuse me, let me take another drink of water. Sorry about that. It's pretty dry up here in Idaho. Half of Idaho is a desert, and the other half is Sawtooth Mountains. So it's really, really dry humidity out here. So when I get talking a lot, I have to remember to drink some water to keep my throat from drying out. So this, so the Y movement from dot to dot is what's being measured in ticks. I'm still losing my voice here. Okay. So when we talk about ticks, we're looking at the change in the Y value, right, from one dot to the next dot, from one bar to the next bar. So let me see if I can kind of filter that out. And I'm going to put my, no, I guess this is a lot easier to see if I leave my chart stretched out. And so it looks, so I have 1 tick of slope requirement for the EMA 11, which is the white moving average here. And let's see what, So actually, even though it looks like this is one tick of movement, it actually is not quite one tick of movement. I'm kind of surprised. So let's find out how much movement there is. Is it 0.9 ticks? And oh, sorry, that's what happened. I had two solvers on here, right, and I had them both enabled. So BloodHound is interpolating between both of them. And I just forgot to turn off the crossover solver. So that's what's going on. So let me set this back to one tick. There. Okay, that makes sense. All right. So this 11 EMA is moving one tick or more down from one bar to the next. So that's what we're actually measuring. So when we're measuring the slope, we're really just measuring the Y movement. So all right, so back to Gary's original question. He was saying 15 degrees. So I don't have a real way of converting degrees to ticks. So let me just kind of put in like how about half a tick? That might be a pretty severe filter, but we'll just kind of take a look and see. So we're still getting quite a few bars that still meet half a tick of movement. So hopefully we won't filter out too many signals. So yeah, so for this bar right here where we do want to get a signal, we didn't filter that one out, so that's good. And you can see that the slope is okay for these longs, but there's other conditions that will filter these longs out as well. So remember, we have to look at the red moving averages as well. So let me give this a name. So we're looking at the 11 EMA slope. All right. I see a bunch of questions coming in, so let me kind of pause and take a look at these questions. All right, thanks for your response, Randy. So Alfred is asking if we have some weight with the guys at NinjaTrader, and Alfred, I wish we did, but we really don't. So we we met the sales guys at Vegas, but we didn't meet Raymond or any of the programmers. Those guys didn't show up in Vegas. So unfortunately, we're just kind of, one of the many fishes in the sea as far as third-party vendors for NinjaTrader. So we don't have any weight with them, unfortunately. But Alfred. So a NinjaTrader's forum. They do have a forum dedicated to requests and ideas. So I guess the best way to get your suggestion heard is to post it up on their forum. And but you know what, Alfred, I'm sure that a lot of people have requested, you know, that type of trailing stop. So okay, so let's see. So looks like Brian has a question here. Brian, if you have time, can you show how to measure the slope of an MA on a 1 minute time frame and plot that one on something like a 50 tick chart? Okay, sure, you bet, Brian. Well, Brian, let me 3 minute, please. Okay, let's see if I have another chart available. Yeah, I think I can use this one. I can show that real quick. So let's see. Okay, so Brian, just one thing to keep in mind. You know what Jeremy was talking about at the beginning of the workshop about NT8 coming out and its ability to work with multiple time frames. You know, so essentially they're working on fixing the issue that I'm going to explain to you right now. So when you're mixing, you know, time-based bars with tick bars, which are non-time-based, the data doesn't synchronize exactly. So when you're trying to transpose, you know, like a moving average from a 50 tick to this 3 minute chart, you know, you don't get exact values out of it because the 50 tick is going to be out of sync with these 3 minute bars. And something else to keep in mind. So right now within just 7, it's always best to have the lowest time frame on your chart and look at higher time frames. So if you look at lower time frames, you know, the chances of the bars synchronizing is far less. So so really you want to be working on the chart that has the shortest time frame on it, and you want to look at higher time frames. So if your system uses a 15-minute chart and a 3-minute chart, it's better to do all your work on the 3-minute chart and look at the 15-minute chart. Right, so and the reason why is if we were working on a 15-minute chart like this, you know, you have to wait 15 minutes for each bar to close, and so if you're trying to pull data from a 3-minute chart, well, 5 of those 3 minutes are going to go by before one of these 15-minute bar closes. And so, you know, because of that, you're missing a lot of data from the 3-minute chart. And so it typically doesn't work out very well. So if we're working with on a 3-minute chart and we're looking up to the 15-minute chart, you know, we can get data from that 15-minute chart, you know, every 3 minutes. So I hope that makes sense to you. All right. So what I'm going to do is just rename this so I don't mess up my system. Oh. That's right. So what we just saw here is I was trying to delete the solvers, and I get this error message. So cannot delete solver because the following logic template is using it. All right, so I have this solver on this logic template here. So I would have to delete the solver first, and then I can, got to delete the solver off of the logic board first, and then I can go back and delete it. But I'm going to take a shortcut, delete the whole logic template. Now I can delete these. All right, so Brian, what you want to do is you're wanting to, so on a 3-minute chart, you're wanting to look at like a 50 tick chart. Now this 50 tick chart is probably going to run a lot faster than the 3-minute chart. So once again, so I would say this 50-minute chart is a much faster moving time frame. So this may not work out too good. And so we want to look at the slope, add that on there, and let me use another chart. Let me pull this guy up. So this is the ES as well. And I need to change instruments. Okay, Brian. Thanks for clearing that up. All right, so we're going to set this to the 50 tick, and we're going to set this to the 3-minute. All right, so you can see on this chart I already have the EMA 55, and so let's oops, let me close that up and open up the right template here. There. All right, so let me change this over to the 3-minute. And let me switch this over to the EMA 55. And let's see here. Trying to guesstimate what the kind of slope we're dealing with here. I think we at least have a 0.5 slope on this part of the CMA is probably about a 0.5 tick, a half a tick slope. So I think that should work okay. All right. So let me close this up, and you see, so because I added the time frame, and also I modified the extra time frame in BloodHound, I had to hit F5 to refresh the chart. And so the next thing we want to do is kind of turn on our global crosshairs, and we can go through and analyze stuff here. Yeah, if I really wanted to test things out, what I could do is add I'm going to add BloodHound onto this chart here. And let me put the slope. I'm going to go kind of fast here. And I just need to switch my moving average over to the EMA. All right, and now we can start playing with the slope values here. All right, so 0.5 looks good. Let's see what happens if we get 0.75. Yeah, there we go. So, yeah, so we're playing around. Yeah, so with 0.75, we can see we get some more variation in that solver's output. All right, so let's use 7.5, and yeah, so what happened is I didn't give this a name, and so it's asking me, what I like to save my template, and I'm just going to hit no for now. So since there's no name for the template on the 3-minute chart, it's not going to save it. So let me bring up BloodHound on this other chart on the 50 tick, and change this over to match 0.75. Okay, so we can see how the output of the solver is stepping down, just like it's stepping down on the 3-minute chart. So there you go. That's how you can cross-reference another chart. And this is also how you can validate, that that you're getting the same results from one chart to another chart. So, and just keep in mind that when you have, hopefully this is another thing that you're fixing with NT8, that things don't quite seem to be synchronized. So you can see that on the 50-minute tick, I'm getting a signal from the solver, right? So the solver is returning a value of 1, whereas we can see on the 3-minute chart, let me mark this bar. Oh, wrong one. Yeah. Okay. Let me go back. So you can see on the 3-minute chart, my cursor is on the bar with the red arrow, and you can see the solver's output isn't quite 1 like it is on the 50 tick. All right, so this is kind of the synchronization issues that hopefully NinjaTrader 8 is working on solving. And that's because what's happening is that on this 50 tick chart, we can't look at the 3-minute bar until it closes. So on this 50 tick chart, it's actually looking back one previous bar. And so that's what's happening. Or I should say that the data that BloodHound is being fed is actually looking back to this bar, 1 bar back on the 3-minute chart. So these are the kind of issues that we run into when we're using multiple time frames. So especially when you're mixing, tick charts and minute charts, or range bars, or Rankos, basically any type of bar that's not time-based, and you're trying to use it with a time-based bar, you get this kind of mix. You get this issue with the synchronization. So, okay, so Brian, I hope that answers your question there. So, Okay, so I'm going to try and wrap this up at about 12 o'clock. So I'm just kind of looking through the questions here. Let's see what's up. Okay, so Brian there, just read your comment about so you know how to do this, but it wasn't matching up in market replay. Yeah, and so so I think I kind of gave you an explanation why things weren't lining up in market replay. Is because of this synchronization issue that Ninja 7 has right now, and hopefully sounds like they're working on solving it for Ninja 8. So. All right, so I'm just going to put things back, bring up the other chart. Let's see, so we're working on this chart here. Okay, so let's work on adding a few of the other remaining filters that George has on his system here. Okay, so other part of this condition is you must have the slope of, let's see, the 13 and 21 EMA and either one of these red lines. So either one of the 55 or 89 SMAs. So one or the other. So he has to have 3 of the moving average slopes in alignment. All right, so let's work on adding the other ones. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this solver that I already made, just going to copy it, and then I can switch it to the 21, change the name, and of course change the period on here. All right, so now I got 2 filters going on, and we can see that it changes things a little bit more. So it looks like it's filtering out a little too much. I no longer have a signal here. So let me lower the requirements of the EMA 21. All right. Now I need to add the 2 red moving averages here. So once again, I'm just going to copy this guy. Now I need to select the SMA. There we go. First one is a 55. Change the name here, SMA 55. Now this is where the subjective nature comes in. So since these are really slow moving averages, you probably would want to lower your slope requirement. So I'm just going to set it down to 0.1. See how that works out. So what it is, I turned off all the solvers except for the SMA 55 slope solver, just to see how things look. No. Well, I'll just leave it at 0.1 for now, so that way I don't filter out all the signals. So I at least want to get some kind of results out of BloodHound, and then I can start playing with the slopes and tightening the slopes up to try and filter out some of the trades that we don't want. All right. So now switch this over to the 89 slope. Alright, so once again all I have is just this one solver turned on, the 89 SMA. Take a look at the chart. Alright. And so he has some other requirements. So now he also wants to check the slope of the blue moving average here. So stretch this out, right? So you can kind of see there's two blue moving averages here. So let's add those on, and these, I changed these to JMAs, although with such a small period, I don't think it's going to matter whether you're using a SMA, EMA, or JMA. It's not, I don't think it's going to make much of a difference. But just for the sake of argument and making an interesting example. Alright, so we got the JMA 1, and the other one is a 3 period. Oh, one other thing I need to change. We want to analyze the typical price. So let me delete this guy and go back and correct this guy so that we're feeding the typical price into it. So the way we can get other price data into our indicators is using the SI chameleon. So that's what this guy does. It's not really so much an indicator as it gives you all of the price data available from NinjaTrader. So I'm going to nest that in there. And we can see we have the high, low, the mid, we have the open, the close, the typical, and also the weighted and median price values. So we're going to feed the typical into the JMA. So we want to analyze the typical into it. Alright, so now that's done, and if I stretch this way out, right, we can see we have the JMA, and then we have SI chameleon being fed into it. And I did select the typical, even though it does say the high on here. I guess unfortunately we can't get that showing the actual one that's being selected, but I do know I did select the typical. Okay, so let me copy that. Now I just need to change it over to a 3 period. So select the JMA, change that to a 3. I believe George probably wants a pretty good slope requirement on this. So let me just set it to a 1 tick slope for these short guys. All right, so I think we have essentially we have all the solvers set up. And so now, because one of the requirements is we have to have both EMAs sloping in the right direction, and we only have to have one of the SMAs. One or the other We could have both. Right, so to implement that, we have to use the logic template. So now that I have all my solvers set up, now it's time to implement the logic template. So I always start working in the logic template last. So I always get my solver set up first, and then work in the logic template last. And that is because once you start working with a logic template, right, you can see BloodHound's output disappeared. And that's because BloodHound output is only changed by whatever's plugged into the result node. Right, so I can turn off all these solvers, but this doesn't change anything anymore. These don't have any effect by turning your solvers on and off because I have a logic template. So now if I want to see results, I have to plug solvers into the result node here. Alright, so let me just drop stuff on here. And we'll sort it all out later. Alright, so I'm going to need an AND node because I'm going to have to take the crossover signal and combine it with our EMAs. So part of the requirements is you have to have the slope of the two white EMAs meeting their requirements. Alright, so it doesn't look like we filtered anything out quite yet. Alright, so the next requirement is we only have to have one or the other. So that would be an OR node. And so that's what did it. That OR node took out these two long signals. Right, so that's because the two red moving averages are sloping down. So we can't get along out of that. All right, so now here's something I like to do. So that way, naming stuff is, to me, is pretty important. So that way, if you come back to this like a week later or even a month later, you can at least read and backtrack what you did. If you start naming stuff. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to name this AND node. This is the signal, and it's the filters as well. So sometimes an AND node will have just the signals coming into it, or typically an OR node usually takes several main conditions which generate the signals, and usually they will feed into an OR node, and then the OR node feeds into an AND node, which then combines your filters. And so this is the SMA, SMA one or other filter. Kind of long. Yeah. How about if I just shorten it to SMA filter there? All right. And the very short, the 1 and the 3 period moving averages are also requirements. So I can plug them into the AND node as well. And it looks like these guys filtered out the signal. So this period 1 filtered it out. Let's see what's going on. We plug this guy straight into the result node, and oh, sure enough. So what's going on? Make this a little easier to see. So I can see I had this little flat spot. Yeah, I have this little flat spot on the bar that gave me a signal. So I don't know. Maybe this doesn't work out to be that good of a filter using the the SMA1 or JMA1 or moving average with one period. It's kind of surprising to see that filtered out. So, but we'll just use the 3 period. So let's bring the interface back up here. So this isn't George's exact system, but we want to show results. So let's just use something that works here. Alright, so I'm going to use the 3 period instead. Alright. And so for the new people who are new to BloodHound, kind of one of the key features of BloodHound is speed. How quickly you can change stuff and test things. Alright, so you can see when I click on this solver on the logic board, you can see I have the solver's interface right here available to me. So I can go in here and I can change my requirement. I can go and change it to a 1.5 tick slope requirement if I wanted to. So let me change this back. And, oh, oops, that's what's going on. Accidentally got that solver connected in there. Oh, there we go. So I noticed I still didn't get a signal out. That's because it looks like the slope of this is a little too tight. So let me reduce the requirements here. That way we can get it to work. Okay. There, now we got a signal out of it. Alright. So one thing you might have noticed is that I can just grab any output of the solver and just plug it straight in here, and you can see the other leader automatically got disconnected. Right? So that's because you can only have one leader coming into the result node. So if you need to have a bunch of, if you want to have a bunch of solvers coming into the result node, you have to use the OR logic. So think of the OR logic as essentially kind of combining everything. It's a pass-through. Think of it as a pass-through. So all the outputs from the solvers just pass right through it. They all get joined together into one output and then right into your result node. So, and you also notice that one solver here can have multiple leaders coming out of it into different logic nodes. However, just keep in mind that if you change something on this interface, right, it changes the output for the data that's going into both the AND and the OR node. So if you have different slope requirements in your system, you would need to make a copy of this solver. Right, and so that way you have two different copies of it so you can change your slope requirement. So it's going to take a look through here and see what we got. Alright, well that's good. It looks like we got this short filtered out. That's nice. And a long signal, well, we got a little bit, but well, this turned out to be a pretty good short signal, didn't it? And, well, we got some points out of this long signal. That's pretty cool. All right, well, so I'm going to wrap it up and leave it at this one, and let me take a look through you guys' questions here. Oh, sorry, Morton, I didn't see your question in time. So you wanted to see an SMA in panel 3. I'm not sure which chart you were talking about. Sorry about that. All right, Randy had to leave. Let's see, Roger. So Roger's asking, how do you generate a long or short signal at slope 0? So a flat slope. All right, let me show that real quick here. So let me take this slow-moving average and copy it. So I'll name it. All right. So what we're going to be looking for, well, first let me since I'm using a logic template, I will have to plug this guy in here so I can see what's coming out of it. All right. So we can see that we're working with this moving average. Let me make it huge so we can clearly see it. All right. So as you can see, as the let me kind of there. So we can see as the moving average flattens out, right, the output from that solver kind of diminishes. So the flatter it gets, the lower the confidence value out of that solver, right? So what you want to do is you essentially you want to reverse that. So in this case, I think you could just use the invert, and what you get, since it's flat, what you get is, well, actually no, that's not what you want. Yeah, that's not what you want. Okay, let's use, well, there's two ways of doing this. You can use the against and in direction in this case. No, sorry. Let me back up again. So what we're going to want to use is the less than minimum. All right? So I'm going to have use the minimum slope requirement as well. All right? So in the minimum slope, I have 0.1 ticks. And since we're flat, we don't really know if we're going long or short, right? So we kind of want both a long and short signal out of this solver, and then we would let the other solvers kind of determine which direction we're going to take the trade. So that's how you would mark a flat area. So, yeah. So there we go. So we're using the minimum slope, and then we're using the output of less than minimum, right? So all the others are set to 0. And so we only want an output when we're less than the minimum. Okay, Roger. Hope that answers your question. So, yeah, Roger, I use 0.1 tick, right, not 0. So you want absolute flat. Okay. So then for absolute flat, we have this special output here. Let me set these to 0. So value at slope 0. So I can set that to 1. And there we go. So there's the bars where the slope is absolutely flat, equals 0. So, and I don't have to put a 1 in there, right? I can control the output of this solver, so I could put like 0.75 when it's flat. And so you can see the value flags here is at 0.75. So I'm not getting a signal out of it because it doesn't exceed the threshold value. You can see my threshold values are at 0.8 and negative 0.8. They're kind of hard to see. They're pretty dim, but there's a light green line and a dark red line down there. So if I put this to 0.8, right, so my threshold values are set at 0.8, and now we're getting the background painted. Right. But normally, you're going to want to see a value of 1 on the output. So now you can see the flags here are giving me a value of 1 and negative 1 on the output. So, all right, Roger. All right, Ernie had to leave. And, oh, Morton, so you wanted to see me put a moving average, apply it to the stochastics. Yeah, I can show you how to do it in BloodHound. Real quick here, let's see what time is it, 12:20. All right, yeah, let's take a look at it in BloodHound. Okay, so say we're going to look at the slope of the stochastics. So, okay, plug the stochastics in there, and well, actually, that's right. We're going to smooth it out. We're going to smooth out the stochastics. So, let me back up, and we actually want the smoothed stochastics. So let's just say we're going to smooth the stochastics out by, I don't know, a 3 period. So next we need to feed the stochastics into it. So I'll hit the nested button, feed it in there, and then we could select what plot or what value from the stochastics we want to smooth out. So if I wanted to, I could smooth out the K value, right? And there we go. So that's how you could smooth out the stochastics. So, and of course you could do that with anything. So I can go find the MACD, nest that in there. So actually I have the stochastics, and normally most of us usually look at the D value. feeding into the stochastic MACD. So we're so we'd be looking at the momentum of the stochastics, and then I could take the average of the MACD and then average that out again, which would smooth it out even more, and analyze the slope of that. So there you can do some crazy nesting right there. So Morton, you're wanting me to show the SMA 14 in a window. Which window, Morton? All right, I'll see if I can get this done in time here. So let me find a blank chart here. All right, so we'll work with this chart. So let me close this up, and so if you wanted to smooth that out, well, okay, so Morton, this kind of seems to be the hard way to go around it. So, you know, if you're wanting to smooth out the stochastics, that's what the K is. You know, so I could take the K and I could turn it back on, and I could smooth it by your 14 period. Hit apply, and so that's what we just did right there. But let me also do it the roundabout way. So let me add the SMA, and we're going to put it on subpanel 3. Okay, so it's going to be white. Change it to a dash. Okay, so now we want to input. We want a nested input. So let me go find the stochastics. And okay, so I'm just going to use default values here. Okay, so we're going to smooth out the D plot, which is typical. All right, so Morton, just to help you out, if you're kind of new to NinjaTrader, NinjaTrader has workshops every day of the week, and they talk about all the different components in NinjaTrader. So they do have a workshop weekly to show you how to use indicators and how to do nesting type stuff like this. So if your question is more about nesting with NinjaTrader, their workshop can really give you a lot of good information. Just in case you didn't know that. All right. We change the period of the SMA to a 14 and hit OK. And let's see here, 14, 5 and 14, actually 7 and 14. Okay, so you can see the white dashed line is the SMA of the D plot, which is the green line. And if you wanted to do that in BloodHound, right, so we'll change this slope over to match what we're seeing on the chart. So let's jump down to the SMAs. And let's see, what did I do? Yeah, SMA 14, all right. Next, we're going to nest the stochastics into it. So we're going to nest the D plot into it. I got the default period set up. Hit OK. And let me kind of set everything back to the default settings here. And so we can see right now I have this solver on the 3-minute chart. So what I can do is I can hit this up button and I can put it back on our default chart. Right? So this is the chart we're working on. So this is the default chart. I can move it onto there. And now we can see things are kind of lining up. So when the smooth stochastic is up, we're getting a long output. Right? And when it's back down, we're getting a short. So, and then I can start. Okay, so here's something that's a little different when you're dealing with slopes. So since this is an indicator on the subpanel, right, that oscillates from 0 to 100, what you want to do is you don't want to use ticks anymore. So ticks is associated with price data, right? So the instrument moves in ticks, and indicators don't really move in. Indicators on a subpanel like the stochastics or MACD, they don't move in ticks because they're not linked to price, right? They have their own scale. So the stochastic scale is from 0 to 100. So what you want to work in is points. So the stochastics is moving from 0 to 100 points. So now, so let's see what 5 points does. Oops. Oop. I'm playing with the wrong value here. So let's see what 5 points does. Okay, there we go. So what that's doing is BloodHound's now marking it when the SMA of the stochastic moves more than 5 points from one bar to the next bar. 5 points down. So, and probably a better way to really, if you're trying to figure out, what kind of, what kind of slope you want to look at, you probably really want to put this from a line onto dot. Let's see. 3 is a little big. Let's put it on 2. Right, so that way you can see the actual movement, and you can stretch your chart way out, and you can kind of get a guesstimation on the movement. Right. Okay, so great. Looks like I answered your question, Morgan. Okay, well that kind of does it. It's 12:30. I need to wrap this up, and these are great questions, and I hope to see you guys next week. All right, so Jeremy, any last words?
No, not really. Thanks, guys.
Anything to mention?
Yeah, I just want to mention again, we are going to be running next week, but skipping the 26th and possibly the 2nd. We haven't decided yet, but for sure next week. Other than that, hope to see you next week, and if we don't, have yourself a great holiday, and at least hopefully see you next year.